In 1948, by the shores of the Dead Sea, Bedouin shepherds searching for a stray sheep found and explored this cave. In it were some clay jars. Inside the jars were scrolls which proved to be the library of a Jewish sect contemporary with Jesus. Now preserved in their own shrine in the Museum of Israel in Jerusalem, the scrolls make no reference to Jesus or to early Christianity. But they did provide a rare insight into the religious climate which prevailed at the time in which Jesus lived. And in this way, they opened up a new approach to the study of the historical Jesus. An approach that would test the evidence in the Gospels against the newly emerging background of life in ancient Jerusalem and, even more importantly, in Galilee, the region where Jesus first became known. Jews today have one belief in particular in common with their ancestors 2,000 years ago. The belief that one day the Messiah will come. Christians believe Jesus was the Messiah. The Jews are still waiting. But just what is a Messiah? And how did Jewish beliefs about him come into being? To answer this question, we must go back way beyond the 1st century. Back to the time when the newly forming race of the Jews were committing to Scripture the adventures and experiences of their pioneer ancestors. According to these scriptures, written many hundreds of years after the events they describe, the decisive incident in the emergence of Judaism was the parting of the Red Sea. Led by Moses, the Hebrew tribe escaped from slavery in Egypt and only avoided recapture by the miraculous intervention of their God. Skeptics have doubted the reality of the event, but recent geological investigation suggests something like it could well have happened. A widely accepted dating of the Exodus coincides with the known date of a massive volcanic eruption which took place here, directly across the Mediterranean from the most likely route taken by the fleeing Hebrews. Volcanic debris, identical to that found in Thera, has been found here. The tidal wave caused by the eruption could have swept away any pursuing Egyptian soldiers. Whatever actually happened, the people emerged to have the firm idea that their God was almighty and had chosen them above all others. They eventually came to settle in the land of Canaan and became known as the Jews. But the land of Canaan was not uninhabited. The Canaanite people resisted the newcomers and maintained control of many of the cities. There was perpetual tension. Tension between the pagan ways of the Canaanites, who still practiced ritual prostitution and human sacrifice, and the developing religious ideas of the new chosen people, who were determined to abandon such barbarity. A set of religious laws called the Torah were formulated. They dictated precisely how each Jew could maintain God's pleasure without resorting to pagan ways. And even though Jewish and Canaanite communities might overlap, no Jew could forget his special obligations. Circumcision would mark him out. But Judaism was unable to crush all the old pagan ways overnight. Even human sacrifice persisted for some time, a fact confirmed by scripture and archaeology. Countless of these fertility goddesses, worshipped by the ordinary Jews, have been discovered along with amulets and charms expressly forbidden by the Torah. Women were excluded from the new religion, perhaps because it was amongst them that many of the pagan superstitions were preserved. Medicinal magic, interpretation of dreams, witchcraft. The center of Canaanite paganism was the impregnable citadel of Jerusalem. It continued to spread pagan ways among the Hebrews. Eventually, a Jewish leader called David determined to capture it. He led a brilliant surprise attack through this tunnel which runs underneath the city. Both pagan city and pagan god were toppled. David's success was so complete that God's hand was again seen, and Jerusalem became Israel's holy city. And David, in Jewish memory, became a divinely anointed king. In Hebrew, a Messiah, or in Greek, a Christ. David's son, Solomon, constructed the first temple at Jerusalem, which became the focus of Judaism. But even these measures weren't enough to quench the thirst for the old religion, especially amongst the poor. Archaeology has revealed that the temple had to compete with indoor shrines to the old gods, sacred mounts dedicated to the moon god. The tension between the new religion and the old found its voice in the emergence of a new category of men who would play a leading role in shaping Jewish spirituality: the prophets. Men like Elisha, who's credited with miraculously purifying this once poisonous spring near Jericho. And the greatest of them all, Elisha's mentor, Elijah. The prophets were men of the people who made it their business to denounce failure to uphold the spirit of Judaism, whether in palace or hovel. Their impact was tremendous, and stories grew that they were capable of miraculous cures and even, in the case of Elijah, ascension to heaven. They warned that God would eventually seek revenge if the Torah was not kept by all. And as pagan habits persisted, it seemed to many that these prophecies were fulfilled.